Hey guys, tonight we're going back, way back, to the misty mountain slopes of 12th century Japan, where your alarm clock isn't a phone but the call of a rooster and the ache in your knees. You're a humble tea picker in a sleepy hillside village, tucked into the folds of Kyoto's outer provinces. The bamboo creaks outside, and your thin tatami mat has left an imprint on your cheek. It's still dark, and your stomach is already grumbling. You blink slowly, brush a bit of straw from your face, and think, is it really time to get up already? Yes. Yes, it is. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly. Every joint complains. The morning air bites at your arms. No insulation in this wooden hut, just reed walls and yesterday's breath hanging in the corners. Outside, your neighbors are already moving. No one talks much in the morning. It's not about being solemn, it's about conserving energy. You'll need it. Your first challenge? Cold feet on frozen floorboards. You slip into your worn straw sandals, the ones that never seem to dry properly. One toe sticks through the hole you swore you'd mend last week. Oops. No time now. You tie your work cloth around your head, grab your picking basket, and step into the mist. The sun isn't up, but the skies started to brighten, just enough to outline the low-hanging fog snaking through the trees. Bamboo groves creak and bend in the wind, and the chill nips at your fingers as you shuffle through damp earth. It smells of smoke, wet grass, and a bit like whatever your neighbor's cooking. You hope it's not the fermented fish again. A rooster crows somewhere behind you. You're already late. Your family's been doing this for generations. You were practically born with a tea leaf in your mouth and a splinter in your thumb. Everyone knows the routine: up before light, work till the sun's high, don't complain, and definitely don't mess up the harvest. You walk past the village shrine and give a polite nod. Even if your stomach's growling, you pause to bow, a small insurance policy in case today's the day the gods finally notice your existence. The morning dew soaks your hem as you make your way through the narrow paths between homes. Chickens dart past. A toddler peeks at you from behind a door frame, snot trailing gloriously in the wind. Outside the communal storehouse, someone's coughing. You hear the rattle of someone else's basket. A few older women are already heading to the terraces. Their backs are stooped from decades of doing exactly what you're about to do. You hope your spine holds out a little longer than theirs. Now comes the first real hurdle, climbing up to the tea fields. The terraces weren't designed for comfort, just for sun exposure and drainage. The stone steps are steep, slick, and cruelly uneven. You slip a little on the moss, catch yourself just in time, and pretend it was graceful. It wasn't. A neighbor jokes, that was almost a new ancestor right there. You smirk, winded already, and keep climbing. By the time you reach the field's edge, your calves are warm, your breath fogs the air, and you're wondering if maybe you should have married that lacquerware apprentice when you had the chance. The tea plants are laid out in rows, low and leafy, stretching across the hillside in disciplined lines. They don't care that you're tired. They don't care that you didn't sleep well. They just sit there, green and smug and ready to be plucked. There's a faint scent of dew on leaves and old earth. You take your spot. It's time to start. You crouch down, fingers already trembling slightly from cold, and you reach for the first soft new shoots. They're small, fragile. The good ones are always at the tips. You need to get just 2 leaves and a bud, no more, no less. That's the rule. Break it, and someone will notice. Somewhere behind you, the overseer clears his throat. You pretend not to hear him yet. You focus on the feel of the leaves between your fingers, the soft resistance, the crisp snap when they break free. You drop them into your basket with practiced efficiency. A small rhythm builds: reach, pluck, drop. Reach, pluck, drop. Over and over. But your knees are already starting to argue with you. The crouching position isn't natural, like some twisted yoga challenge invented by someone with a personal grudge against thighs. You shift your weight, try to stretch your back, and keep picking. It's been maybe 5 minutes. Straighten your spine, the overseer barks. His voice slices through the fog. You're picking like a dying crow. Charming. You offer a small bow of acknowledgement, even if he can't see it. It's not worth arguing. You resume the rhythm. Reach, pluck, drop. Over and over. As the mist thins and the first hints of sunlight spill across the rows, the tea bushes begin to glisten. It would be beautiful if your legs weren't numb. Birds start chirping nearby. One lands on the path ahead, stares at you for a beat, and hops off. You envy it, hollow bones, no taxes. At this hour, the world is quiet. Just breath, breeze, birdsong, and the rustle of fabric as you move. There's peace in it, in a way. Peace and exhaustion. You catch yourself slowing, and the overseer's stick taps the ground behind you, not quite hitting, yet. The day's only just begun. You make it to breakfast alive, though just barely. The path back down from the fields is short but tricky, made worse by your stiff knees and the dew-slick rocks waiting to trip you. You walk carefully, hunched under the low-hanging branches, basket slung over one shoulder. The aroma of morning fires has taken over the village now, burning rice husks, damp wood, and a vague, lingering tang of miso. Inside your family's hut, the hearth is already warm. Someone's managed to get a small fire going, and the pot of okayu, watery rice porridge, is bubbling lazily. You can hear it more than smell it. The scent is so faint you'd almost miss it if you weren't actively starving. You take your spot on the floor. No chairs, no tables, just knees and ankles folded in awkward geometry as you huddle close to the fire for a little warmth. The steam rising from the pot curls into the cold air like incense. Someone ladles your portion into a wooden bowl, followed by a pinch of pickled radish, daikon that's been fermenting just long enough to make your tongue twitch. No one's really talking. A few soft coughs. A sniffle from the corner. The only consistent sounds are the bubbling of the porridge and the occasional polite slurp. This isn't the time for conversation. This is refueling. This is survival. You spoon a bit into your mouth, lukewarm, bland, and comfortingly mushy. It tastes like very polite sadness. But your stomach doesn't care. It welcomes every bite like a celebration. A few kids murmur to each other, probably discussing whether they'll be old enough to join the picking soon. You don't envy them. You'd trade places in a heartbeat if your spine were willing. An elder shifts beside you and lets out a soft grunt. Their joints are as vocal as yours, just more experienced. You glance around and realize almost everyone has some visible patchwork on their clothing. Mended sleeves, retied sashes, fraying hems. You're all stitched together, just like your lives, quiet, hardworking, and entirely ignored by the glitz of the capital. Occasionally, a gust of wind whistles through the gaps in the walls. It flutters the paper window screens and sends a shiver across your back. Someone stands to stuff another stick into the fire. Sparks dance upward, catching briefly in the draft. You try not to think about how short this break is. Technically, it's breakfast. But it's more of a prelude to more labor. A little pit stop before you resume your crawl up the tea-slick slopes. Someone near the doorway is already standing. Stretching. Loosening their knees. It's like watching someone psych themselves up for a foot race, if that race was a slow-motion trudge through itchy leaves and disappointing ergonomics. You swallow the last of your porridge, the grains sticking slightly to your teeth, and set the bowl down. You hesitate for a moment. Just a few seconds more of stillness. Just a little longer before the ache returns. A neighbor clears their throat meaningfully. It's time. You rise, joints clicking like old shutters, and dust off your knees. Your work cloth is damp from the earlier climb, but you ready it anyway, tugging it tight over your hair. Your hands are already red from the cold. No gloves, of course. Gloves are for people who can afford to pick tea badly. The path out of the village is more awake now. Other households are moving. Someone's sharpening a sickle. A chicken flaps noisily away from a child holding what looks like a half-eaten rice ball. You shake your head. Poor kids probably dreaming of becoming a monk just for the food. Outside the small storehouse, the air smells briefly of fermented soybeans, probably someone's miso crock venting its soul to the heavens. You breathe in, wince slightly, and press on. Back on the climbing path, your sandals sink slightly into the wet dirt. The same stones, the same turns, the same creeping vines tugging at your ankles. It's almost comforting in its predictability. Almost. A flock of sparrows flutters past. One drops something from its beak. You really hope it's not what you think it is. The mist is lifting now. Pale blue sky peeks through the bamboo canopy, and sunlight starts filtering down in long, golden lines. It's beautiful in that fleeting, I don't have time to enjoy this sort of way. You pause for 1 second, just to appreciate the moment, and immediately stub your toe on a root. Balance lost. You stumble forward and catch yourself, but not before your knee kisses the ground in a slightly too familiar way. Someone behind you lets out a muffled laugh. You pretend you didn't hear it and keep climbing. Dignity is a luxury item in these parts. As you near the fields again, you feel that creeping tension in your thighs. Your body knows what's coming. It's already protesting. You flex your fingers, try to shake the stiffness loose. They'll need to move quickly, delicately, and non-stop for the rest of the morning. Your section of the tea field waits, exactly where you left it. The bushes are squat, round, and perfectly indifferent to your suffering. You approach like a soldier reporting for duty, except your only weapons are your fingers, your back, and your questionable optimism. You crouch once more. That familiar burn flares up in your knees as you fold into position. This time, the ground's a little colder. The leaves are a little wetter. And your patience is a little thinner. You start again. Reach, pluck, drop. Reach, pluck, drop. Someone near you sneezes. The overseer barks at them to mind the leaves. You're not sure what that even means, but everyone nods solemnly. It's easier that way. You fall back into rhythm, your breath steady, your fingers quick. Around you, the only sounds are the rustle of leaves, the occasional grunt, and the whisper of wind over the ridge. This is your life now. This is your morning. Rice scrawl, aching joints, and an audience of tea bushes that couldn't care less. But at least the porridge was warm. By now, the sun has made a proper entrance, low and wide across the sky, casting gold over every leaf, pebble, and tired human clinging to the hillside. It would be majestic, really, if you weren't wheezing slightly and praying your sandals don't betray you on the climb. The tea fields may look like gentle green waves from a distance, but climbing up to them is another matter. You're no longer navigating a quaint village path. These are zigzagging switchbacks, slick with moss and last night's drizzle, flanked by steep drops and tree roots that seem to reach for your ankles like hungry fingers. You keep your eyes on the ground. Look up too fast, and the vertigo might win. You wouldn't be the first to tumble sideways and land in someone else's field. That's never a good look, especially when you squish a batch of just-picked tea and have to apologize with your forehead on the ground. Your basket's lighter on the way up, at least. The real weight is in your thighs, your shoulders, and that little voice in your head reminding you how many more hours are left in the day. Spoiler, it's most of them. You pass another worker. Her face is weathered like the bark of a cypress tree, and she's chewing something, maybe roasted barley? Maybe the root of all bitterness? You nod politely. She grunts in return. That's considered a friendly exchange. At a bend in the path, you stop for a second to catch your breath. There's a stone marker here, moss-covered, slightly tilted, probably some forgotten boundary line. You lean against it casually, pretending not to be using it to keep from falling over. Then, the breeze shifts. You catch a scent on the air, fresh tea leaves, recently plucked, warming under the sun. It's faint but sweet, like someone exhaled the idea of green tea. For a moment, it makes the climb feel worth it. Then your sandal slips, and you're reminded that poetic moments rarely involve bruised toes. Back to it. You push forward, gripping tree trunks where you can. You're not even to your plot yet, but the tea terraces are beginning to rise on all sides now, carved into the mountains like green stairways. They are narrow, leveled by hand, and held together with stones, mud, and generations of reluctant labor. When you finally reach your assigned rows, you're sweating despite the chill. The morning damp clings to everything: your sleeves, your neck, your spirits. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve, which does nothing, since the sleeve is also wet. Here we go again. You crouch low, adjusting your stance to avoid toppling headfirst into the bushes. The tea plants are stubborn. The ideal leaves grow at the top, tiny, tender, and absolutely unwilling to detach themselves without a fight. You reach carefully, using your thumb and forefinger to pinch just the right spot. Snap. Into the basket. Repeat. You're not alone. All around you, other pickers are hard at work, bent double like overcooked noodles. Every once in a while, someone grunts or sighs or mutters something under their breath. You catch snippets: not enough tips on this one, too dry, don't let the overseer see that. Nobody wants to get docked for sloppy picking. You remember what happened last week when Yuta turned in a basket with older leaves mixed in. He ended up cleaning latrines for 3 days and somehow got fewer rations to boot. Your own form? Not exactly poetry in motion. Your spine is already curving like a question mark. You shift, try a different angle, end up knee-deep in a bush that's stickier than expected. A spider dangles down beside your eye, probably offended by your intrusion. You apologize out loud. There's always something biting, or crawling, or blooming into your socks. You once found a beetle in your sleeve after dinner. You named him Daikai. He did not survive the wash. The sun rises higher. It's warmer now, but that just means the bugs are waking up. You swat at something near your ear. Miss, swat again. Miss again. It's becoming personal. Your basket slowly begins to fill. It's not fast work. Every leaf must be just right, plucked without tearing, no damage to the bud. The real trick is doing it while bent at the perfect angle, low enough to reach, high enough to keep breathing. You try not to think about how many more rows are waiting, or how much heavier the basket will get, or the blister forming on the inside of your thumb, right in the same spot as last season. Back straighter, someone says behind you. It's not the overseer, it's an older picker, barely looking up. You nod and adjust, even though your spine was just starting to feel like its old, squashed self again. It's a quiet camaraderie out here. Not friendly exactly, but shared. You're all in the same posture, the same sweat, the same slow rhythm of tea leaves and strained muscles. As you move to the next plant, your foot slips slightly in the mud. You catch yourself just in time but squish a tea shoot in the process. You glance around quickly. No one saw. Probably. You hope. You pluck the next shoot with extra care, as if to make up for it. The sun's starting to creep over the ridge now. Light slants through the bamboo in long beams, catching in the dust and pollen hanging in the air. It looks magical. And it probably would be, if your left knee wasn't humming with the pain of 1,000 squats. Someone down the slope lets out a sharp yelp. Then silence. Then laughter. Probably slipped. You don't laugh. but only because it might be your turn next. You pause for a second to roll your shoulders. They crackle like old kindling. The basket's starting to dig into your side. You adjust it, shake out your fingers, and stare at the next bush. So many more to go. You mutter a small prayer, not to the gods of tea or the ancestors, but to the gods of endurance. If such a deity exists, they've got their hands full today. And still, you pluck. Reach, snap, drop. Reach, snap, drop. The hillside hums with the sound of effort and insects. The tea leaves are relentless. And the climb, like the work, never really ends. Your legs have settled into a dull ache that pulses in time with your heartbeat. That might sound romantic if it weren't for the part where you're pretty sure one of your knees is plotting against you. By mid-morning, the hillside is fully awake. The light is brighter, less golden, and more clinical, like the world's most judgmental lantern. Every flaw in your technique, every trembling wrist and uneven pluck, is now fully visible, not just to you, but to the overseer who's finally wandered up the path. He doesn't speak much. Just a small man with eyebrows like storm clouds and a walking stick that doubles as a pointer, both for direction and correction. You feel his eyes before you hear his footsteps. He doesn't yell. He doesn't need to. One raised eyebrow, one shallow grunt, and everyone straightens like a string has been yanked through their spines. You silently thank your earlier self for fixing your posture. You may still be bent like a comma, but at least you're not the worst-shaped punctuation mark out here. Still, he lingers near your row. You try not to show your nerves. Your fingers keep moving, slower now, more deliberate. This part of the day is a balancing act, speed and accuracy, quantity and quality. You're not just collecting tea leaves. You're dodging embarrassment. He finally moves on. You exhale, possibly for the first time in 10 minutes. As you shift to the next bush, you take a moment to stretch your legs. That doesn't mean standing fully upright, don't be ridiculous. That would be like shouting, "Hey everyone, I'm taking a break." Instead, you straighten just enough to roll your ankles and shake the pins out of your feet. From here, you can see the lower village clearly. The rice paddies shimmer in the sunlight, mirroring the sky in tidy rows. A few white dots move along the edge, other workers, some oxen. Beyond that, a thin thread of smoke climbs into the air from a distant cook fire. It looks peaceful. Too peaceful. Suspiciously peaceful. Probably because you're not down there. Your tea basket is now heavy enough to throw off your balance. You shift the strap across your back, wincing as it digs into a fresh bruise. The weight of those tiny leaves adds up fast, kind of like debt or regret. You push on. Pluck, pluck, pluck. The sound has become background music. You can almost hum along. This part of the day is when time does its worst trick, speeding up and slowing down at once. You glance up thinking hours have passed, it's been 12 minutes. You zone out for what feels like a blink, it's been half an hour. The sun hasn't moved an inch. The bush in front of you might be growing back out of spite. A boy nearby suddenly drops his basket. It tumbles, spilling leaves everywhere. He freezes, horrified, then scrambles to recover them, hands flailing in panic. The overseer snaps his walking stick once, and the boy bows twice as fast. No one speaks. No one helps. Helping gets you noticed. You keep your eyes down. You've got your own leaves to worry about. Let's talk about tea etiquette, shall we? See, in the 12th century, tea isn't yet the full-blown cultural obsession it's destined to become. This isn't the refined ceremony of later samurai courts. It's not Zen yet, it's caffeine. Medicine. A stimulant prized by monks for staying awake during meditation and by court elites for staying smug during poetry contests. And yet, even now, certain tea leaves are more valued than others. The youngest, most delicate tips are often reserved for the upper class. Those leaves might be ground into powder, a precursor to matcha, and whisked into a bitter, frothy drink that tastes like concentrated grass and ambition. You, of course, will never drink it. You'll smell it, briefly, when it's being packed. But that's about it. Your tea ends up elsewhere. Maybe on a boat to the capital. Maybe sold to a merchant. Maybe dried into bitter little bricks that can be traded like currency. So you pluck carefully. Not for yourself, but for someone who'll never know your name. Someone whose worst hardship today will be deciding which fan to use during a poetry recital. Someone who, ironically, might write a poem about the beauty of these tea fields. Probably without mentioning the mud. Or the ants. Or the back pain. Historians still argue whether the average tea picker in this era had any awareness of the broader tea trade forming around them. Some believe rural workers were entirely detached from the rising cultural wave. Others suggest they might have heard whispers, stories passed down, maybe even glimpses of fancier buyers passing through. What's certain is that the value of your labor is rising, even if your wage is not. Tea is gaining popularity. Aristocrats are starting to demand it. And demand, as you've come to learn, just means work harder. Someone sneezes again nearby. This time it's you. Probably from the pollen. Or the dust. Or sheer indignation. You shake it off. Your fingers are slowing down, and your back is screaming louder than your stomach. You haven't eaten since that whisper-thin breakfast of rice porridge and pickled hope. Thankfully, the bell rings. A small clang from down the slope, once, then twice. It's not lunchtime yet, but it's a rest signal. You get one short break. 15 minutes of not being bent over like a haunted doll. You rise with more effort than grace and shuffle to the shaded edge of the path. There's a little cluster of you here, workers huddled like turtles under the one tree that still offers some shadow. Someone passes around a canteen of barley tea. It's lukewarm and slightly sour, but it might as well be ambrosia. You take a sip and sigh. Not because it's delicious, because it's liquid. A few people stretch. One lies flat on the ground, arms out like a starfish. Another pulls a rice ball from a cloth bundle. You watch, enviously. You didn't pack one. You tell yourself you're too tough to be hungry. You lie. There's chatter now. Soft and cautious. Someone mentions a wedding coming up. Someone else curses the new landlord. Someone else just groans and rubs their knees like they're trying to charm a genie out of them. 15 minutes never go so fast as when you're not doing labor. The bell rings again. And just like that, it's time to return to the rows. Your basket waits for you. Still heavy. Still half empty. Still ready to remind you who's in charge. The shade was a lie. A pleasant lie, sure, but temporary. And now you're crawling back into the light, back to the heat, back to the unspoken contract that says, if your hands aren't moving, your food stops showing up. You pick up your basket again. It feels heavier, somehow. Maybe it absorbed your regret. Back in your row, the rhythm resumes. The sun has climbed above the tree line now, and with it comes a special kind of heat, the kind that doesn't burn but bakes. Slowly. Like you're a bun left on a rock. Your shirt, already damp, clings to your back in that special way that makes you wonder if you're growing gills. The air smells like wet bark and determination. The afternoon shift begins. It's harder now. Not because the work changes, but because your body is halfway to betrayal. Your knees are less reliable. Your hands are clumsier. Your mind wanders more, drifting off into fantasies of cool rivers, deep naps, and a world where you can stand up straight without hearing something pop. You reach for a tea shoot and miss, grabbing a twig instead. It snaps loudly. You mutter an apology to no one in particular and correct yourself. The leaves don't forgive, but they also don't remember. You're not allowed to switch rows unless told to. These rows are yours. That's how labor is structured: individual accountability, no excuses. If your leaves are underpicked, it's your name that gets marked. If your basket is underweight, you get fewer rations. If you pick from someone else's section, that's called theft. Of course, the rows aren't actually marked. No signs, no ropes, no flags. It's all just understood. Which is exactly what makes it dangerous. You overhear a quiet argument 2 rows over. One picker, a younger guy with fast hands, thinks someone's encroached on his section. The accused, a wiry woman with a strong brow and no time for nonsense, shrugs and keeps working. Words are exchanged. Not loud ones, but pointed. No one throws a punch. This isn't that kind of job. Fights waste time, and time is leaves. Still, you note the tension. It sticks to the air like humidity. You keep your head down. The truth is, you don't own anything here. Not the basket. Not the clothes. Certainly not the hillside. You're not a landowner. You're not even a tenant farmer. You're part of a hired labor force, sometimes seasonal, sometimes semi-permanent, always interchangeable. Landowners, the ones who actually make money off these crops, rarely appear. When they do, they ride up the hill like ghosts, hidden under layers of silk and shade. They talk to overseers, not to workers. You might glimpse their shoes, if you're lucky. But the real movers and shakers? Monasteries. Yes, Buddhist temples. In the 12th century, some of the most significant tea-growing lands in Japan are controlled by monastic orders. That's right, the calm, contemplative world of Zen also runs a pretty tight agricultural operation. It's not all meditation and rock gardens, they've got taxes to collect and tea to sell. You pluck with slightly more respect for your monastic bosses. Just in case reincarnation is real and you're earning spiritual points. Or karmic back pain. A breeze kicks up. For half a second, it's perfect, cool, clean, and full of distant bird calls. You close your eyes, let it pass over your face like a benediction. Then a leaf slaps you in the eye. Nature giveth, nature poketh. You blink it away and get back to work. Down the hill, a shout goes up. Something's happened, someone fell? A dropped load? A snake? You'll never know. The commotion is short-lived, and the overseer's voice cuts through it like a dull blade. Silence returns. A woman in the row next to you coughs. It's dry and persistent. You glance over. Her face is pale, drawn. She keeps working. Of course she does. There's no tea leave exemption for coughing. You briefly wonder if she'll be there tomorrow. Then you wonder if you will. This, right here, is the part of the day when the work becomes personal. Not in a meaningful way. In a your body hates you now kind of way. Your fingers are sore. Not just sore, shaky. The joints are puffed up. Your nails, stained green, are rimmed with dirt. One finger has started to cramp. You shake it. It twitches like it's trying to escape your hand. And your back? Well, you stop checking in with it. It's on its own journey now. Probably somewhere in the next village. Still, the rows continue. Bush after bush, all of them somehow the same and completely different. Some are generous, big leaves, easy plucking. Others are stingy, clinging to every bud like it's their firstborn. You whisper small insults to the stingy ones. Nothing vicious. Just a little, "Oh, you think you're special?" It helps. A little. Quirky tidbit time. There's evidence that in some regions, tea pickers used to sing to the bushes. Not romantic serenades, but rhythmic, work-sync chants, part motivation, part tradition. Some say the vibrations helped calm the plant. Others say it just kept pickers from falling asleep on their feet. You hum a tune. It's made up. Your own tea anthem. You call it, "Please let me sit for 5 minutes." It's not a hit yet, but it's catchy. The overseer reappears. He's doing his rounds, collecting baskets now. You brace yourself. He steps into your row, grunts once, weighs your pickings. The basket shifts on a hanging scale, swaying back and forth. He makes a note on a thin piece of bark. Doesn't say a word. Walks away. You think that means you did okay. Either that or you'll find out tomorrow that your lunch portion is the size of a walnut. You get a replacement basket. Fresh. Empty. Demoralizing. And just like that, you start over. Same row. Same angle. Same ancient ache in your soul. Somewhere above you, a hawk calls out. You look up and see it soaring over the hill, circling, scanning. You wonder what it's looking for. Prey? Shade? The exit? You envy it. Wings would be useful right now. You settle for the next best thing, one more deep breath. You inhale the scent of soil, sweat, and sun-warmed leaves. Then you exhale. And you keep plucking. Your fingers have gone numb, not in the dramatic, frostbite kind of way, but in the "oh cool, my nerves just filed for early retirement" way. They still move, because you've trained them to. But the sensation is ghostly. You pluck, not because you feel the leaves, but because your body now expects the motion. The afternoon rolls on, sticky and sun-drenched. You're officially past the midpoint of the workday, which sounds encouraging until you remember what comes next, the heat crest. This is the part of the day when the sun hits peak rudeness, and you begin to question if shadows were ever real, or just a collective hallucination. You tug your head covering a little lower, not for style, not for fashion, but because the back of your neck is one wrong breeze away from medium well. Around you, the tempo has dropped. Even the fastest workers have slowed, their motions less precise, more robotic. Nobody talks anymore. Even the birds have dipped out, leaving behind a soundscape made entirely of rustling leaves and mild despair. Then, mercifully, the lunch bell. The clanging echoes from the base of the hill like a promise. It means 1 hour. 60 full minutes of not picking. In the context of this day, it might as well be a vacation to a quiet coastal village. You shuffle downhill with the others. It's less of a walk and more of a controlled wobble. Your legs are stiff, your back has stiffened into a scenic overlook for pain, and your stomach is now very loudly wondering what the delay is. Down at the base of the T-slope, a row of shaded benches has been crudely set up. Think rustic, if rustic meant logs that gave up. You claim one before someone else can, setting your basket aside and sinking into the seat like it's made of clouds, which, of course, it is not. It's splintery and uneven, but at this point, it's basically a throne. You reach into the satchel tied around your waist and pull out your lunch. It's humble, predictably, and slightly warm from the sun. A ball of rice, compressed, slightly salted. A sliver of dried fish. Maybe a pickled plum, if you're lucky today. You are not lucky today. Still, it's food. And food means fuel. You eat slowly, deliberately. Even though your brain says devour, your hands say savor. You listen to your hands. Around you, murmured conversations start to rise. Nothing lively, just the kind of quiet talk that can slip through tired throats. Someone mentions rain might come tomorrow. Another wonders if the barrels for drying are still cracked. You hear someone else mention a traveling monk who passed by the village last night, carrying with him a scroll, a prayer, and absolutely zero interest in field work. Your ears perk at that. Monks again. You think back to what you've heard. Some temples grow their own tea to serve their cloistered communities, especially those aligned with the Zen sects, which are just starting to gain prominence in Japan around this time. Tea becomes their tool for meditation, a way to chase enlightenment, not unlike how you're chasing a full stomach. Mainstream historical fact incoming. By the 12th century, tea consumption among Japan's elite, particularly among monks and court nobles, is on the rise, largely thanks to the influence of one key figure, Izai. A Buddhist monk, Izai is credited with bringing powdered tea and Zen Buddhism back from China, planting both the seeds, literally and spiritually, that would bloom into a full-fledged tea culture in later centuries. You, however, are unlikely to meet Izai. You're more likely to meet his tea. Still, there's a distant sense that you're part of something bigger. Your fingers may be cramping, but they are feeding a movement. That might be a poetic thought, or just a symptom of mild dehydration. Lunch winds down. A boy 2 benches over is already asleep, curled against a log like a sleepy squirrel. No one wakes him, yet. The bell will do that soon enough. Before it rings, you take a moment. You tilt your head back and look up. The sky is unreasonably blue. Clouds drift like distant ships, completely unconcerned with your aching joints. You close your eyes for 10 seconds. No more, you've learned the hard way how fast 10 seconds can become 10 minutes. Sleep now means punishment later. Still, those 10 seconds feel like silk on your mind. Then, yes, the bell rings again. The dream is over. The slope awaits. This time, the climb feels different. Not harder, exactly. Just heavier. As though gravity got petty while you were eating and turned up the dial. Your legs aren't so much climbing as dragging. The rows stretch above you like ancient responsibilities. Once again, you stoop into position. Hands forward. Eyes down. You resume. Pluck. Twist. Drop. Repeat. But now the rhythm has dulled. You're not tired, you've moved beyond tired. You're into that strange, floaty zone where pain and motion blur together. Your body becomes a set of gears, your breath a bellows. You stop thinking in words. You just are. Fringe tidbit time. There's at least one 12th century folk belief that tea plants absorb the emotions of those who tended them. Meaning, if you were angry, your leaves would turn bitter. If you were joyful, they'd bloom sweeter. No science, obviously, but you still try to smile, just in case. Of course, the smile is more of a twitch. But it's the effort that counts, right? The sun is past its apex now, dipping ever so slightly toward the west. The light becomes warmer again, less aggressive. Shadows stretch. Birds return, cautiously. You catch one perched on a nearby branch, preening itself like a feathered aristocrat. It's all very peaceful. If you forget your back, and your hands, and your stomach again. Someone groans nearby. A real groan, from deep in the belly. You don't even look over. It's just normal now, like wind or bird calls. You steal a glance at the hill's summit. There's a small post up there, a wooden marker tied with bells. Supposedly, when a harvest is truly abundant, the overseer rings it at sundown, once for each full basket collected. You do some quick mental math. At this rate, it won't be many chimes. The quality of the leaves is declining, too. The afternoon sun dries out the plants. Some of the younger tips have curled inward. The good leaves are harder to find now. Your fingers have to search more, feel more. Your body isn't thrilled about that. But you continue. Because there's no option to not. You are the hands of this hillside. The breath in its soil. The complaint in its wind. And it will not stop until it decides it's full. The wind is starting to change. You feel it in the way it skirts under your sleeves, cooler now, with the first whispers of evening tucked inside. It doesn't bring comfort, exactly. But it promises that the day has a finish line, and that's enough. Your basket is half full again. You're not sure if you're moving faster or just becoming more efficient at pretending you are. The leaves come off in clusters now, your fingers sweeping over the bushes like tired little scythes. No grace, just necessity. You glance at the horizon. Still hours to go. But the light is mellowing, shifting from bright gold to something softer, something with hints of copper and honey. Shadows stretch like lazy cats. And just like that, the mood on the hillside changes. It's subtle, but the pace of plucking slows, slightly. Backs straighten a little more often. People begin doing that thing where they stretch one leg out behind them without breaking stride, trying to sneak in a secret stretch without being noticed. You do it too, pretending you're just adjusting your stance. You're not fooling anyone. Your lips are dry. Your canteen has been empty since an hour after lunch. And no, you can't just go refill it. That's not how this works. Water's available down by the shade shed, but that means walking away from your row, and walking away means fewer leaves, which means less pay, which means someone asking why you thought your personal hydration was more important than, say, feeding your entire household. So you suck it up. Literally. You find a blade of grass that still holds a single bead of dew and swipe it across your tongue. It doesn't help, but at least it makes you feel like you tried. Time creeps now. It no longer flows, it drips. Slow, thick, and with no consideration for your patience. And yet, the mountain continues its slow shift. The tea plants, which looked sharp and spiny in the morning, now seem gentler in the fading light. The rows are no less long, but they somehow feel less hostile. You spot a spiderweb between two leaves. A perfect will of silk. The spider sits in the center like it owns the hillside. Maybe it does. After all, it didn't spend the day crouched in human misery. There's a superstition floating around that stepping through a spiderweb in a tea field brings bad luck, one of those regional things. You're not sure where it started, or why, but you carefully pluck around the web. Let the spider keep its kingdom. Historians still argue whether labours in this period were paid in coins, food, or debt forgiveness. It depended heavily on the landowner, the temple, or the estate system in place. You're probably being compensated in the simplest way possible, a daily food ration, maybe some grain to take home, and the rare promise that if you do this well enough, you'll be asked to come back next harvest. It's a tempting deal. You know. You're living it. A bird startles out of a nearby bush. It flaps up and away, loud and fast, leaving behind a burst of motion and a few dropped feathers. You jump slightly, because when you've been hunched over in a trance for hours, even a gentle breeze can feel like a ghost sneaking up behind you. You laugh to yourself, quietly. It's not a happy laugh. More of a why am I doing this to myself chuckle. The overseer reappears again. He's slower now too. The heat has taken some of the bite out of him. He squints down your row, doesn't say anything. You think he nods. Or maybe that was just gravity pulling his head forward. Hard to say. You pluck on. In the distance, there's a soft clang. A blacksmith? No, too rhythmic. Probably someone prepping the tea-drying trays for the evening roast. That's someone else's job. The ones who dry and roll the tea leaves are a different crew entirely. Slightly better paid, often older, and with hands permanently stained a deep greenish black. Some of them were pickers once. Most aged out. You wonder how long you've got before your body makes that choice for you. Then, a small miracle, someone walks up your row with a pail of barley tea. Cool. Not cold, but cool. That's enough to make you weep. You take the ladle gratefully and sip. The liquid tastes like salvation and slightly burnt grain. You don't care. It could taste like bark and sadness, and you'd still finish it. Don't chug, the boy warns. You'll cramp. You don't chug. But you do hold the liquid in your mouth for a few seconds longer than necessary, just to remember what wet feels like. He moves on. You return to your leaves. Pluck. Twist. Drop. Repeat. Now it's just muscle memory. Your mind drifts. You think of home. Of whatever sleeping mat or shared room you'll return to. Of the smell of miso, if there's any left. Of washing your hands in cold river water before supper. Your hands twitch. You accidentally snap off a twig. You whisper an apology to the plant. It's not listening, but still. The air grows thicker. The bugs come out. Midges, tiny and persistent. They don't bite, they just hover. Like small, buzzing reminders that nature can be annoying at any scale. You swat once, then again. One flies into your eye. You blink, curse under your breath, and keep going. Nearby, someone begins humming. Not loud, but enough to catch your ear. It's not a song you recognize. Just a few drifting notes, slow and sad. You find your fingers matching the rhythm. It helps, somehow. You think about the fact that people have been doing this for generations. Before you. After you. Long after anyone remembers your name or the curve of your spine. You are not special here. But you are part of it. A link in the long, quiet chain of tea. The sun dips behind a ridge. The world shifts into amber. Almost done. You don't speed up. That's how mistakes happen. But your heart gets a little lighter. The last leaf goes into your basket like a final note. You exhale. Not triumphantly, more like relief. There's no chime from the summit today. Not enough baskets filled. But no one complains. That would take energy. Instead, you stand. Slowly. Every joint protests. Your body makes noises like a box of loose coins. You lift your basket. It feels twice as heavy as it did this morning. The day's almost over. Almost. The air thickens with the scent of crushed leaves and warm earth as you begin the slow descent from the fields. Your basket is awkward in your hands, not quite balanced, not quite light, and your legs feel like cooked noodles left too long in a colander. Every step down the slope requires more focus than it should. You're not walking so much as carefully negotiating with gravity. Others join you in this silent procession. Nobody talks now. No one has the energy to waste on words. You all just trudge, a line of dust-streaked workers heading back down toward the compound. It's not dramatic. Just part of the routine. Your back throbs. Your hands pulse. Your neck has a kink in it that might be permanent. But you hold the basket steady, because sloshing the leaves will bruise them, and bruised leaves are waste. And waste doesn't get paid. At the bottom of the hill, the sorting station comes into view. A long, shaded shed, open on both ends. Beneath it, tables. Long, wooden, and dusted with residue from the day before. A handful of other workers are already there, laying out their haul. You join them, placing your basket gently on the table and beginning the next chore, the sort. See, plucking is just the beginning. The leaves still have to be examined. Some are too large. Some have stems that crept in by mistake. Some are torn or curled or, in one case, harboring a tiny caterpillar who looks just as annoyed to be here as you are. You flick it away gently and keep going. Your fingers move almost on instinct. This part, at least, you can do sitting down. You settle onto a low stool, if you're lucky enough to grab one, and begin to pick through the batch. Neat piles of keepers, maybes, and definitely nots form in front of you. The sun is setting behind the trees now, casting orange-pink light across the shed. The shadows of the workers stretch long and strange, like tired spirits caught mid-task. Mainstream historical fact for you. In 12th century Japan, tea processing wasn't yet standardized. The refinement methods varied wildly from region to region. Some involved steaming, others roasting, and nearly all involved painstaking hand-rolling. The goal? Prevent oxidation and preserve that vibrant green color. That vibrant green that, ironically, no one working these fields ever had the privilege to actually drink. Because here's the kicker, this tea? It's not for you. This batch will head to the estate house, where it'll be further processed and portioned out. Some may be gifted to a temple. Some might be sent to a provincial official as a tribute offering. Some, if it's exceptionally high quality, may even end up in a city tea house for the nobility, who will sip it thoughtfully while discussing poems about dew on bamboo. You, meanwhile, have leaf dust under your nails and a suspicious blister on your thumb that has decided to turn purple. Still, you sort. Pluck, flick, pile, repeat. At some point, someone brings you a small bowl of rice porridge. Thin, salty, with a few stray grains of barley. You cradle it like a treasure. It's warm. It has texture. You eat it with both gratitude and strategy, because dinner might be hours away, or not at all, depending on what else the day throws at you. A few kids scurry past, young ones, too small to work, too fast to stop. One of them trips near your table, sends a puff of dust into your face. You blink it away, not even mad. It's almost funny. Almost. There's some quiet conversation around the shed. Low voices, comments about how this year's leaves seem thinner than usual. Someone wonders aloud if the rain last month stunted the growth. Another worker mutters about the mountain spirits, and you're not entirely sure if it's a joke. You remember the old woman from your village who claims tea fields are alive, that they listen to your footsteps, remember your hands. That you should never curse near them. That you should always bow on your first pluck of the morning. You never asked if she made that up or if someone told her. Either way, you bowed this morning. Just in case. Fringe tidbit time. Some laborious in the Heian and early Kamakura periods wore small amulets stitched inside their clothes, tiny carved charms made from bone or wood, meant to ward off fatigue or protect from snake bites while working in the fields. You secretly hope yours is working. You didn't see any snakes, after all. But fatigue? Yeah, it must have misplaced that part of its job. Sorting winds down. Your piles are checked by another worker, quickly, but not carelessly. One or two leaves get shuffled into a different pile. No comment. Just a subtle correction. A quiet reminder that perfection is the expectation, even after a 14-hour day. You sigh, but nod. The accepted leaves are swept into a woven basket, ready to be taken to the roasting area. You won't go with them. That's not your station. You've done your part. And now? Now you wait. Some workers get dismissed early, especially those with children or elders to care for. Others, like you, linger. There's often a final chore, maybe cleaning tools, maybe fetching firewood, maybe helping recover the tea with mats to shield it from dew overnight. Tonight, it's firewood. Of course it is. You get handed a bundle of hemp rope and pointed toward the edge of the forest trail. It's not far, but every step now feels symbolic. Like your body is trying to stage a very slow, very creaky protest. You collect the sticks without ceremony. Just dry branches, light but awkward. You tie them with the rope and hoist them over one shoulder. The bark scratches your neck. As you walk back, the stars are just starting to flicker into view. A pale sliver of moon hangs above the ridge. Somewhere, a nightjar calls out with that eerie, rising note that always sounds a bit like a question. When you return to the compound, the fire is already lit in the center pit. Workers huddle near it, warming their hands, their knees, their very souls. You do the same. There's not much conversation, just a shared stillness. A silent agreement that no one needs to say how tired they are. Someone tells a short joke about a rooster that mistook a teacup for a nesting bowl. It's not that funny. You laugh anyway. And finally, you're dismissed. You shuffle toward your quarters. A low hut, shared, dim, with straw mats and the smell of tired feet. You drop onto your mat with no grace at all. Your muscles let go like someone cut the puppet strings. You close your eyes for a second. Just 1 second. Tomorrow will come early. But for now, there is sleep. Sleep doesn't last long. It never does in this place, Not with sunrise spilling over the horizon like an uninvited guest and the roosters sounding off like unpaid interns desperate to prove their worth. Your eyes peel open to that warm, golden glow you once thought beautiful. Now it's just aggressive. Your body feels heavier today. Not sore in the fresh, I did something productive kind of way. No, this is that deeper ache, the kind that settles into your bones like a squatter and refuses to leave. Your shoulders crack when you sit up. Your fingers are stiff. Even your eyelids feel like they need to be coaxed into motion. You stretch, if you can call it that. One leg out. One arm up. Your spine makes a noise like an old gate hinge. Congratulations, you're not dead. Just moderately broken. Outside, the camp is already stirring. A fire smolders in the cooking pit, coughing out thin smoke that smells of wet wooden leftover porridge. A few voices murmur in the distance, too tired to carry any real emotion. Someone is already sweeping. Because yes, even here, dust waits for no one. You head over to the water basin, dipping your hands into the cold morning stream that feeds into the trough. It's bracing. It also feels like plunging your arms into the regrets of every laborer who's ever lived. But at least it wakes you up. You splash your face, then pause to look at your reflection in the ripples. Yikes. Dirt smudges on your cheeks, leaf particles clinging to your sleeves, and a shadow under your eyes that could pass for actual eyeliner if you squint. You're basically a historical fashion icon. Breakfast, such as it is, awaits. A ladle of broth, rice, and one wilting pickled radish that looks like it gave up last week. You chew slowly. Not because you're savoring it, but because your jaw is still figuring out how to be part of the team this early. And then, it's time. Again. You collect your empty basket. It feels oddly light in your hands now, which is more of a warning than a comfort. It's about to get much heavier. Your group forms at the base of the slope. The morning mist clings low, wrapping the tea fields in ghostly curls. It's beautiful, in that way mist always is, right up until it soaks your socks and clings to your sleeves like cold cling wrap. The overseer greets you with a grunt. That's about as affectionate as he gets. You nod. He nods. It's the historical equivalent of a group text saying you're ready. You hike up again. But here's the thing, they've moved you. Yesterday's rows were near the midsection of the hill. Today, you're up high, almost near the summit. And if you thought the incline yesterday was steep, today's trail is a stairway carved by someone who really hated knees. Your calves scream. Your basket shifts. Every step up is like negotiating with the gods of gravity. You try not to look back, because the drop is now officially scary. Finally, you reach the new row. The view is better here. You can see all the way down the terraced fields to the smoke curling from the cookhouse chimney below. It would be poetic if you weren't sweating into your eyes and trying not to hurl. Your hands begin again. Pluck, twist, drop. At first, you try to get into yesterday's rhythm. But this slope is steeper. The bushes lean differently. Your stance is all wrong. You adjust. Try again. Pluck, twist, drop. Faster, now. This batch is meant for a temple offering you overheard last night. Special processing. High expectation. Possibly headed for a high-ranking monk or, if the quality's excellent, as a gift in a political negotiation. You can practically feel the pressure in your palms. This is where that open scholarly debate crops up. Some historians suggest elite tea was consumed exclusively by monks and nobles at this time, while others argue that warrior households were already developing their own tea customs, especially in remote mountain provinces. You, of course, don't get a vote in that debate. You just pick. The sun breaks over the ridgeline, and suddenly, the world lights up like someone threw open a curtain. Shadows disappear. Heat returns. Sweat begins. And that delicate, Glowy mist? Gone. Now everything's just wet. You spot a bright orange beetle crawling across a leaf, and for a second, you think about giving it your basket and walking away. Let it be responsible for harvest today. It's got 6 legs. That's 5 more than you want to use right now. But no. You bend back down. Pluck. Twist. Drop. There's a moment, just one, where it all clicks. Your hands find a rhythm, the light hits just right, and the breeze carries a scent that isn't entirely unpleasant. For that brief flicker of time, you don't hate the field. Then the breeze shifts, and you smell someone's sweaty robe nearby, and the illusion shatters. Your back already burns. You glance at the sky. Not even mid-morning yet. Down the slope, someone is singing again. Same voice as yesterday. You still can't place the tune. It might not even be a song, just a kind of humming meant to make time behave. It doesn't work. Time still crawls. You pick. Your knees begin to wobble. You try shifting your weight from one leg to the other every 10 leaves or so. It helps a little. You're not sure if it's an actual technique or just desperation masquerading as innovation. A dragonfly hovers beside your face for a moment, like it's checking on your progress. You resist the urge to swat it out of sheer jealousy. Look at it, floating, no weight, no basket, just pure aerial smugness. Your fingers brush over something rough, a twig. You toss it aside. Another leaf cluster curls around a snail. You carefully redirect. The rules about what's acceptable in this harvest are stricter today. No bug-bitten edges. No yellowing tips. You pluck slower because of it, but if that's what keeps you from having to redo your basket later, you'll take the hit. Eventually, the slope levels out slightly. Not much, but enough that you're no longer bracing every footstep like you're hiking through a punishment. You look around. The baskets nearby are filling. Not fast, but steadily. And then, miracle number 2, the midday runner again. This time, it's roasted barley tea with a bit of crushed citrus rind. Your tongue practically cheers. You sip. You hold the cup longer than you should. And then you keep moving. Pluck. Twist. Drop. The sun arcs overhead. Time oozes onward. You stay in motion. Because you have to. Because if you stop now, you're not sure you'll start again. The sun is merciless now, hanging high and heavy above you, baking the hillside like an ancient kill. Your skin feels tight, stretched thin as if the heat might crack it open at any moment. Sweat beads and trickles in slow, stubborn rivers down your back, seeping into your clothes until they cling in soggy patches. The tea bushes shimmer in the heat, their leaves glossy and deceptively vibrant. You remind yourself that this lush green is the result of so many days like this: steep hills, endless plucking, aching muscles, and stubborn determination. You move in that slow, hypnotic rhythm. Pluck, twist, drop. Your fingers have learned the dance, even if your mind tries to rebel. At times, you wonder how anyone managed to keep their spirits alive during these long days, especially since the rewards were not your own. A fly buzzes annoyingly around your face, the closest thing you get to company. You swat at it half-heartedly, missing, because your arms are too tired to coordinate properly. It lands on a leaf nearby, waiting, as if mocking you. You notice a fellow worker nearby, an older man with a weathered face that could tell stories of 100 harvests. His hands are steady and sure. You watch as he plucks leaves almost without looking, his eyes fixed on the horizon. There's a quiet dignity in his movements, like he's mastered a secret language. Historians still argue whether the tea pickers at this time viewed their work as merely labor or if there was a spiritual element to the harvest, some suggesting that it was a meditative practice, others dismissing that as romanticism. You're too exhausted to care. For you, it's just the way things are. Your back protests every bend, your knees beg for relief, but you push on. You remind yourself that no one here is spared the grind. The fields don't care about your excuses. Suddenly, a shadow crosses your path. You look up to see a young woman carrying a small wooden box. She's moving with purpose, heading toward the sorting shed. A rare sight, only a few people are trusted with the precious cargo of freshly harvested leaves, and only the best batches get transported this way. You catch a faint whiff of the herbs tucked inside her box, a sharp, clean scent that momentarily distracts you from the heat and fatigue. She passes without a word, but something about her calm contrasts sharply with the weariness etched on your face. Lunch comes next, though it's less a meal and more a brief reprieve. You gather with others under the scant shade of a lone tree. The porridge is familiar and bland, but warm. Some share small offerings, bits of pickled vegetables or dried fish, passing them around quietly. You eat slowly, savoring the stillness, the faint breeze that cools your flushed skin. The tea bushes sway gently, as if nodding in approval. A small boy from the village runs up, clutching a handful of wildflowers. He offers one to you shyly. You smile and tuck it behind your ear, feeling momentarily human again. The afternoon stretches ahead like an endless road. After lunch, the overseer calls everyone back to the fields. Your legs threaten mutiny, but you obey. Back in the rows, the pace intensifies. There's a sense of urgency now, as if the day's fading light might swallow the harvest whole. You move faster, your fingers blurring in a practiced blur of plucking and sorting. The leaves in your basket pile higher. The ground beneath you is uneven, littered with fallen branches and small stones. You stumble once but catch yourself quickly. Nearby, a group of workers hum a low tune, an old folk song about rain and harvest. The melody is soothing, a thread of humanity woven through the toil. You hum along quietly, your voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. As the sun dips lower, the air cools slightly, and shadows stretch long across the fields. The promise of evening brings relief, even as your body screams for rest. With the day's harvest collected, you trudge back down the slope, baskets heavy with the fruits of your labor. Tonight, the firelight flickers warmly in the compound. The workers gather around, sharing stories, laughter, and the comfort of community. You sit back, tired but grateful for the small moments of connection. Tomorrow will be another day of picking, sorting, and carrying. But for now, you rest. Morning comes again, soft and slow, with a chill that sneaks through the thin walls of your hut. Your body protests less today, a welcome surprise, though your muscles still remember yesterday's punishment with quiet thuds of pain. You pull your rough blanket tighter around your shoulders and listen to the distant sounds of the village waking up, the caw of a crow, the faint chatter of children, the rhythmic chopping of wood. You get up, though every move is an argument between will and weariness. The compound is already bustling as you make your way outside. There's a crispness to the air that hints at the coming season change, the subtle scent of fallen leaves mixing with the earthiness of the tea plants. Today, you're assigned to a different task, weeding. It's a change from plucking but no less grueling. The tea fields, though carefully tended, still attract the usual forest visitors, wild grasses, creeping vines, and stubborn roots that threaten to choke the precious bushes. You kneel on the ground, your fingers digging into the soil, pulling out weeds one by one. It's a slow process, and your knees begin to ache quickly. The earth is cool beneath your palms, grounding you in a strange way. As you work, you notice a butterfly fluttering nearby, its delicate wings catching the sunlight. For a moment, it feels like a brief reprieve from the monotony. You wipe sweat from your brow and keep going, focused on clearing the undergrowth. Nearby, an older woman hums quietly to herself, pulling at stubborn roots with practiced ease. She tells you stories between tugs, about the tea plants, about the seasons, about the mountain spirits that protect the fields. Whether you believe her or not, her voice is soothing, a steady presence amidst the endless work. Historians still argue about the role of women in tea cultivation during this era. Some say they were the primary laborers, others believe men dominated the fields. What's clear is that the work required every hand available, regardless of gender. Midday arrives, and you sit beneath a tree to eat your meager meal. The porridge tastes better today, maybe because you're hungrier or maybe because the fresh breeze carries the scent of pine and earth. You lean back against the tree trunk and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the forest wash over you. Somewhere, a woodpecker taps a steady rhythm. A breeze rustles the tea leaves overhead. After lunch, you return to weeding. Your hands ache from gripping roots and twisting at the stubborn weeds. The sun climbs higher, warming your back and turning the soil to dust. Suddenly, a shout breaks the quiet. A worker has found something. You rush over to see a patch of tea plants damaged by a swarm of insects, their leaves pocked and scarred. The overseer frowns deeply. This means more work, more vigilance. You help clear the damaged leaves, careful not to disturb the healthy growth. The day stretches on, filled with small victories and persistent challenges. By evening, your hands are raw, your clothes stained with dirt and sweat. You make your way back to the compound, tired but satisfied that you've done your part. As night falls, you lie on your mat, the sound of cicadas lulling you toward sleep. Tomorrow will bring more work, more stories, and maybe, just maybe, a moment of peace. You wake to the sound of rain tapping softly on the roof. It's a different kind of morning, a slower, wetter one. The earth smells rich and alive, and the tea leaves glisten with droplets like tiny jewels. The scent of damp soil and fresh leaves fills your nostrils, a reminder that even the hardest work has its tender moments. Today, the overseer announces a change. Instead of picking or weeding, you'll help process yesterday's harvest. Inside the small wooden shed, the air is thick with the sweet, vegetal aroma of fresh tea leaves. Workers sort through baskets, separating the best leaves from the bruised or damaged ones. Your fingers are nimble, picking and tossing with surprising care. There's an art to it, knowing which leaves will brew a smooth, rich cup and which will bring bitterness or disappointment. You learn quickly that even a slight discoloration or a curled edge can mean the difference between prized tea and something best left for common use. The task is quieter than the fields, but no less demanding. You keep your focus, aware that every decision impacts the next step in the long journey from leaf to cup. Outside, the rain intensifies, drumming against the roof in steady rhythms. You catch glimpses of the wet fields through the open door, the plants heavy with water, their colors deepened by the storm. The rain offers a pause, a moment to breathe, but also brings challenges. The freshly harvested leaves must be dried carefully to avoid mold or spoilage. The workers adjust the drying racks, turning leaves gently and arranging them for even air circulation. You're handed a small fan made from woven bamboo strips. It's a humble tool but essential for keeping the drying process steady. You fan leaves in slow, rhythmic motions, feeling the weight of responsibility in every sweep. A few older workers share stories about past storms, how a sudden downpour once wiped out nearly a season's harvest, leaving entire villages scrambling. They talk about resilience, about adapting, about respect for nature's unpredictability. Historians still debate how much control tea farmers had over the drying process at this time. Some argue it was mostly natural sun-drying, while others believe primitive kill methods were used. Whatever the truth, you're grateful for this shelter from the rain. As afternoon deepens, the rain lightens to a gentle mist. The workers step outside briefly, stretching stiff limbs and exchanging quiet conversations. You notice a small bird hopping among the puddles, its feathers soaked but lively. It chirps a bright note, a tiny rebellion against the gray skies. By evening, the rain has stopped, leaving the world refreshed and sparkling under a low sun. The air is cooler, carrying the scent of wet grass and distant pine. You feel the day's labor in your muscles but also in your spirit. There's something humbling about working with nature's rhythms, the giving and taking, the patience and persistence. As you settle down for the night, the memory of the rain's gentle song lingers, a lullaby to carry you through the darkness. Dawn creeps in again, teasing the sky with faint streaks of pink and gold that promise a dry day, thank goodness, because after yesterday's relentless rain, the fields are damp and heavy, and the air smells like fresh earth mixed with moss and something faintly sweet, like overripe fruit left to ferment. You pull your sleeves tighter around your wrists, trying to keep the chill from creeping in, but the dampness settles in your bones like an old injury. Today's work is different again. The overseer's voice carries over the fields. Today, we prepare the leaves for steaming. The words sound almost gentle, but you know better. Steaming is the critical first step in transforming those delicate green leaves into something magical, the tea you've heard so much about but barely understand. You trudge toward the processing hut, passing workers carrying baskets brimming with freshly picked leaves. The basket you carry feels lighter today. Your job is to handle the leaves carefully now, not pluck them off thorny bushes. Inside, the air is thick with steam and warmth, a sudden shock after the cool, moist outdoors. You feel the heat rise like a wave, but it's oddly comforting too, like the kind of sauna you never wanted but desperately needed. A huge iron kettle bubbles on a wood-fired stove, releasing clouds of fragrant steam. The smell is sharp and vegetal, with a hint of earthiness that reminds you of crushed leaves underfoot. Your hands tremble slightly as you carry a tray of leaves toward the steaming basket. Woven bamboo, perforated to let the hot vapor through but sturdy enough to hold the delicate leaves without crushing them. The overseer demonstrates the technique. Leaves go in, but don't crush. Steam for exactly 30 seconds, no more, no less. You nod, trying not to think about the clock ticking, because this task requires precision and patience. The steamed leaves will become softer, more pliable, ready for the next steps of rolling and drying. As the first batch steams, you watch the transformation. The green leaves darken slightly, becoming glossy and fragrant. The process releases an aroma that's both soothing and energizing, like the promise of a fresh start. This step feels almost sacred. You sense the centuries-old tradition vibrating in the warm air, the countless hands that have done this same task, the rituals passed down through generations. The rhythmic hiss of the steam becomes a backdrop to your thoughts. You remember stories about monks who considered tea a spiritual practice, an aid to meditation and clarity. Historians still debate whether tea's early use was purely practical or deeply symbolic, but here in this steamy shed, it's easy to feel that connection. You carefully lift the steamed leaves onto drying mats, spreading them with slow, deliberate movements. The texture has changed, softer now, almost velvety beneath your fingertips. Outside, the sun climbs higher, finally drying the damp earth and warming your chilled skin. The field workers resume their picking, their voices drifting through the open windows. You're glad for this moment of stillness and focus, even as your arms ache from bending and lifting. The work is quiet but demanding. Every leaf must be handled just so, or the entire batch could be ruined. After a few hours, you help roll the leaves by hand, pressing and twisting them into tight little coils. The process feels strange, almost intimate, like you're coaxing the tea's hidden flavor to emerge. Your fingers ache, but there's a strange satisfaction in the effort, like shaping something fragile and important. By late afternoon, the rolled leaves are ready for their final drying, laid out on bamboo trays in the sun or near gentle fires. The smell of roasting tea fills the air, mingling with the faint smoke and the ever-present scent of green fields. You take a rare moment to breathe deeply, letting the layered smells wash over you. Despite the exhaustion, a spark of pride flickers inside. You are part of this ancient cycle: plant, pick, steam, roll, dry, each step weaving together history and craft. The sun dips low, casting long shadows across the fields. The workers gather their tools and make their way back to the village, tired but satisfied. You look out over the terrace slopes, the tea bushes glowing softly in the dusk. The mountain air cools, and a gentle breeze stirs the leaves, whispering secrets of harvests past. As you lie down that night, the warmth of the steaming shed still lingers in your hands, and you carry the taste of history with you, a bittersweet reminder of the day's labor. The morning light spills softly through the wooden slats of your hut, casting long, lazy stripes across the floor. Today, your hands are assigned to sorting and grading, the final quality control before the precious tea leaves are packed and sent off. The weight of responsibility settles heavily on your shoulders, because you know these leaves represent not just the harvest but the livelihood of everyone around you. You sit at a low table in the sorting shed, the wooden surface scarred and worn from years of use. Baskets of dried, rolled tea leaves sit piled around you, their earthy scent filling the air like a promise. Your task is to separate the best leaves, the ones destined for fine green tea, from the ordinary and broken bits. Each leaf tells a story. Some are bright green and whole, others curled and darkened, some tiny twigs masquerading as tea. Your fingers move quickly, but your eyes strain to spot the subtle differences. It's a meticulous process that demands focus and patience, qualities that feel in short supply after days in the fields. You overhear conversations between workers, debating which batches will fetch the best price in town, or whether this year's crop will be better than last. Historians still argue how much control farmers truly had over tea quality during this era. Some suggest they left much to chance, while others believe careful sorting was a skill passed down through generations. A small beetle crawls across the table, its shiny shell catching the light. You watch it for a moment, curious how something so tiny can survive amid the tea leaves and human toil. The workers joke that the beetle is the tea guardian, keeping watch for pests and bad luck. Sorting continues well into the afternoon, your hands moving in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The sun slants through the open windows, warming your back and casting dappled shadows across the piles of tea. Occasionally, a worker brings over a new basket, fresh from the drying racks, and you start the process anew. Your mind drifts to the future, imagining the tea being brewed in distant homes, enjoyed in quiet moments by people who have no idea of the journey it took to get there. You think about the contrast between your world and theirs, the sweat, the aches, the relentless sun, versus the calm of a warm cup in a peaceful room. As evening approaches, the overseer announces it's time to prepare the tea for shipment. You help bundle the sorted leaves into rough paper packets, tying them carefully with strips of bamboo. The packets are stacked neatly, ready for transport by horse or cart. You watch as they are loaded onto a wagon, feeling a strange mix of pride and relief. Later, you join the workers around the evening fire. Stories flow easily now, tales of the mountain, of strange creatures, of past harvests that were good and bad. The fire crackles, sending sparks into the night air. You lean back, letting the warmth seep into your tired bones. Tomorrow will bring new work, new challenges. But for now, you rest in the company of others who share your story. The day fades gently into night, and you close your eyes with the quiet hope of better days ahead. The dawn breaks softer now, the sky a pale wash of blues and grays, hinting at the gentle close of your long journey. Today, you assist with loading the final bundles onto carts bound for market. The scent of dried tea leaves fills the cool morning air, mingling with the dust stirred by the slow shuffle of hooves and wheels. There's a solemnity in this moment. These leaves are no longer just the fruits of labor but the promise of trade, of survival, of connection with a world beyond these steep mountain slopes. You help tie down the bundles, the coarse ropes biting into your palms, your fingers raw but steady. The cart jolts as it starts moving, the wheels creaking over the uneven dirt paths. You watch the terraced fields grow smaller behind you, rows of tea bushes stretching like a green sea. The road is bumpy, the air filled with the chatter of merchants and fellow villagers. You overhear talk of the market town, where tea sells for good coin, enough to buy rice, tools, maybe a rare treat. There's talk, too, of taxes and tributes demanded by the local lord, a reminder that this cycle of work extends beyond the fields into the tangled web of politics and power. Historians still argue about how much agency tea farmers had during this period. Were they mere cogs in a feudal machine, or did they wield subtle influence through their craft? Whatever the truth, you feel the weight of their hands on yours, the generations that came before and those who will follow. As the cart jolts to a stop near the bustling market, you watch as buyers inspect the leaves, fingers sifting through bundles with practiced scrutiny. The price is set, negotiations whispered in low tones. The air hums with energy and tension. Back in the village, the day winds down with a rare sense of celebration. The harvest is done, the work, for now, complete. You sit around the fire with others, the flames flickering like tiny suns against the encroaching darkness. Stories flow, some humorous, some sobering, all weaving the shared tapestry of life here. You notice the stars beginning to twinkle overhead, silent witnesses to the endless cycles of labor and rest. As you lie down to sleep, the aches in your body softened by exhaustion, you reflect on the journey, the endless hills, the relentless sun, the rain that cleansed the earth, the tea leaves that transformed under your hands. You realize that surviving a workday picking tea in 12th century Japan isn't just about strength or endurance, it's about patience, respect for nature, and a quiet kind of resilience. The day's final breath slows your thoughts, the gentle rhythm of night lulling you into rest. Tomorrow is another day, but for now, you let go. Now, as we close this chapter, imagine the hills bathed in moonlight, the tea bushes whispering softly in the night breeze. You've traveled back through time and toil, felt the sun scorch your skin, the rain soak your clothes, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done, even if it's far from glamorous. Remember, history isn't always about kings and battles. Sometimes, it's about the quiet struggle of everyday life, the dirt under fingernails, the ache in muscles, the camaraderie forged in hardship. So, as you drift off, let the gentle rustle of ancient leaves soothe you, knowing you've walked a path few dare to imagine. Sleep well, and sweet dreams.